Yo, what up guys, I'm Sammy and welcome back to the Soul Drop, and today we're going to be doing a versus video between the Nike Jaw 1 and the Jordan Tatum 1. So as far as the price goes, it's actually very similar, a very competitive pricing. So the Jaw 1 is 110 bucks and the Tatum 1 is 120 bucks. I don't know why I keep wanting to call it the JT 1. But anyways, if you guys do want to cop either of these shoes, I try to leave the link in the description box. They're both first signature shoes for Jayson Tatum and also Morant, right? They're both amazing performers. I really like playing in both of them, but we'll have to see which shoe is going to be better for you, right? But anyways, let's get started off with the Tracciones, and the Jaw 1 wins. The Jaw 1 wins. The Tatum 1 is really good still, but the Jaw 1 is absolutely amazing. It's god tier. The traction is so damn good. If you're playing on a clean court, it has an amazing bite. The Tatum 1 also really good bite. It's using like just foam, right? You have two rubber pods here in the forefoot, but the rest is pretty much foam to reduce a lot of the weight. But the Jaw 1 is still light. I will have to see as far as the weight goes, which one's lighter and stuff like that later on. But yeah, the traction, Jaw 1, amazing. It's better on a clean court. Also dust, right? Jaw 1, it bites through dust insanely well. And it's also, if it does pick up dust, it's a very easy wipe. The Tatum 1 does pick up a little bit of dust, right? But it's an easy wipe, so you'll be fine if you keep up with your wipes, but you're going to be wiping a good amount more in the Tatum 1 as opposed to the Jaw 1. And then as far as the durability goes, also way better in the Jaws. You can even play in these on an outdoor court. The Tatum 1 does not seem durable at all, especially with this foam. And here, like in the tip of the toe, it's also like rubbing off a little bit. So yeah, pretty much in all three categories for the traction, right? Durability, performance on a clean court, and dusty court, the Jaw 1 is way better, right? So there's that, but not to say the Tatum 1's bad. It's just the Jaw 1 is really good. All right, so there's a traction there. Moving on to the heel to toe transition, they're both very smooth, right? So here in the heel, it feels very nice because the foam is actually pretty soft, even though we have a little bit more of an edged out shape here in the heel for the Jaw 1. And then in the forefoot, we have a nice rounded shape and a good amount of forefoot flex, which feels nice. The Tatum 1 also feels really good. I would say the torsion support is not as good, right? But here in the heel, it's super soft. We have a nice rounded shape, and then in the forefoot, nice rounded shape and a good amount of midfoot and forefoot flex. Like, look at that. The torsion support is not great in the Tatum 1. So if you have any issues with your feet, like plantar fasciitis, you know, like your arch hurts or something like that, the Tatum 1 probably isn't the best option. I didn't really have any issues with that, but just be careful on that. The Jaw 1 is actually way better for torsion support. It does not really bend in the midfoot at all, right? So there's that. Moving on to the cushioning setup. So the cushioning setup is pretty subjective, of course, for cushion, but I would say it's like pretty similar, right? So as far as the zoom units go, we have a zoom unit in the forefoot for both of the shoes. However, the Tatum 1, there is a good amount more bounce, right? There's a good amount more compression and bounce. It's bounce here in the forefoot for the Tatum 1. I would say it's a lot more subtle than like a Zoom Strobel unit in the forefoot. It's almost just as bouncy as like a Zoom Turbo unit, but just a tiny bit less, right? The Jaw 1 is a lot more subtle than the Tatum 1, but there's still a little bit of compression, a little bit of bounce in the forefoot. It's the top loader zoom unit in the Jaw 1s as well, so it all depends on what you want, right? It feels pretty similar, but the Tatum 1 has more bounce and more compression, right? And then in the heel, also the Jaw 1 is a little bit more subtle, right? The foam is still kind of soft and there is a little bit of compression. However, it's not as soft as the Tatum 1. The Tatum 1 is it's actually quite soft here in the heel. And also, I would say the Tatum 1 has better court feel. The Jaw 1 still has really good court feel, right? Don't get me wrong, but the Tatum 1 just feels a little bit lower to the ground. Impact protection overall, they're both adequate, nothing amazing. I feel like, in my personal opinion, I like the Tatum 1 a little bit better, although the Jaw 1 is still pretty nice. So if you want something a little bit more subtle, then obviously lean toward the Jaw 1. If you want something a little bit more bouncy, you know, and you want a little bit more compression and a little bit more cushion, then go with the Tatum 1. However, like I said, they both feel pretty similar, right? All right, moving on to the materials. So I would definitely say I like the ballistic mesh a little bit more in the Jaw 1, just because it's just as thin, right? It's just as thin. I actually would say the Tatum 1 is a little bit softer, however, right? But it's just as thin. And both of these shoes conform to your foot very well as far as the material go, but it feels more supportive, right? There's zero stretch to this material, right? The Tatum 1, it still feels pretty supportive, but there's a little bit more stretch, and we'll get into support and all that, but the material definitely is not as supportive in the Tatum 1 as opposed to the Ja 1, right? As far as the quality goes, I'll pretty much tie it up. It's not amazing quality for both of the shoes. I do like, however, the like leather, like synthetic leather touches, right? It doesn't feel, I mean, it does feel like on the cheaper side of things, but it looks a little bit better, right? And when you look at it, it looks a little bit more quality as opposed to the Tatum 1. As far as the tongue goes, the tongue is pretty well padded here in the Ja 1. I would say a little bit more than average. And then here in the Tatum 1, I would say it's a little bit more minimal, right? Not as much padding. They both have half booty construction tongues, giving you a better overall one-to-one fit. And then here in the ankle area, the Ja 1 actually has a good amount more padding. It feels very, very well padded, especially on the sides of the shoe. So it feels super cozy, like in the back of the shoe. The Tatum 1 is a lot more minimal feeling, although like here in the back there is a little bit of padding, but the Ja 1 still has more padding, right? So as far as like quality goes, I would pretty much tie it up, but on foot, I would say I like the Ja 1 a little bit better. And now moving on to the fit, I went true to size for both of these shoes, and they both fit me extremely well. I like to have a very, very snug fit in my ball shoes. So yeah, I would say the Tatum 1, it's still a snug fit, but it's a little bit more loose than the Ja 1. The Ja 1 has the tightest toe box pretty much I've ever felt. A really, really snug toe box. I can't even move my toes, let alone curl them at all, right? And I do like that for basketball. But if you're like kind of more like casually walking around in them, probably go up half a size, right? And here in the Tatum 1, it's still a snug fit, right? Lengthwise, true to size, I was good to go with both of the shoes. The Tatum 1, however, like I said, this material is not as supportive, so it does stretch out a little bit over time, so it's a little bit more snug than the Ja 1, even though it's still snug. And then as far as the width goes, I would say they're both slightly narrow. So they both fit me extremely well, and I love the fit in both of the shoes. And as far as the support and lockdown goes, right? So support and lockdown, for lateral containment, the Ja 1 is really, really good, right? So here in the forefoot, we have the foam coming up, acting as a sidewall, and we have this like leather piece, right? It stiffens up the material, giving you better support. And then here in the heel, we have an internal TPU heel counter, super duper stiff. So lateral containment, it was really, really good. And also this upper was very, very supportive, so my foot wasn't moving around inside of the shoe either. The Tatum 1, however, is really good for lateral containment as far as like my foot's not going out of the footbed, right? So for lateral counters, you can see this, this plastic frame and also the foam coming up, acting as a sidewall here in the forefoot, here in the midfoot, and then here in the heel, we have an internal TPU heel counter, right? But we have the material, which is super duper soft, really, really soft material. So it wasn't terrible. It just kind of reminded me of the PG6 a little bit, right? It was adequate support or lateral containment for me. It's just the material moves around a little bit when I was doing like lateral movements, like side to side movements. So because of that, it felt not as supportive as a Ja 1. Like I said, it was adequate for me. It wasn't terrible or anything, just not as adequate or not as good support as a Ja 1. So if you need really good support, then obviously lean toward the Ja 1. If you're like a smaller guy like me and you don't really care, or actually if you played in the PG6 and it was adequate for you, then you should be fine here in the Tatum 1. But like I said, if you need more support, then lean toward the Ja 1, right? As far as the lateral stability goes, let's see which shoe is wider. It seems around the same actually. Interesting, right? So lateral stability, you're low to the ground and you have wide bases in both of the shoes. So support and lockdown, I would say the Ja 1 is a little bit better because of the more supportive upper. And the Tatum 1 is like a mid-cut, right, shoe, but you don't really get amazing ankle support, right? So there's that. Moving on to the weight of the shoe, these shoes are actually really, really light. The Tatum 1 is actually the lightest basketball shoe that Jordan Brand has to offer. The Ja 1 is actually super light, although it doesn't look light. Yeah, if I remember correctly, it's actually pretty damn light. So I'm actually pretty curious which shoe is lighter. I'm guessing the Tatum 1 though. Tatum 1 is so 10.85 ounces, and then the Ja 1 is 11.4 ounces, right? So the Tatum 1 is a little bit lighter, not by a whole lot, but it is lighter. Actually, there's less padding as well, so it does feel a little bit more minimal as far as the upper goes, right? As far as responsiveness goes, I would say the Ja 1 is a little bit more responsive, however, because the traction is just a tiny bit better and the overall shoe is more supportive as well. So because of that, I feel like you feel a little bit quicker in the Ja 1 as opposed to the Tatum 1, right? But if you want the overall more minimal feeling shoe and also the overall lighter shoe, then the Tatum 1 obviously is the way to go. All right, moving on to the ventilation. Tatum 1 is a lot more ventilated, right? It has a lot more airflow through this upper as opposed to the Ja 1. And now moving on to the aesthetics. Ooh, I don't know, guys. Both of these shoes look really, really good. I really like Tatum 1s. There's some really dope colorways coming out. And the Ja 1s look really good, and there's some dope colorways coming out as well. So honestly, I tied up. They both look really good. So tell us what you guys think of the aesthetics down in the comment section below. So wrapping things up, for me personally, I would say the Ja 1. The Ja 1 is better. The traction is better. It's more durable. Yeah, the overall shoe also is a lot more durable. It feels like. It also feels like it's gonna last a good amount longer. The Tatum 1, I don't know what it is. Like this is the pair that I played in, right? And it's seeming a little worn out. You know what I mean? And the Ja 1 feels a lot less worn out, even though I played in them pretty much equally. So yeah, the Ja 1 also does feel more durable, right? So and it's $10 cheaper. Cushion is not as good, but still very similar. A better support. Materials feel more durable, but it feels just as thin, and it conforms to fit very well. So I would pick the Ja 1 over the Tatum 1, right? And also there was a problem with the midfoot shin plate, or I guess the torsion support. So yeah, for most cases I would say the Ja 1 is better. I guess the only instance that the Tatum 1 is better is the cushion, but it's just by a little bit, like I said, and also I guess it is lighter and more minimal. But that's about it. And I would recommend the Ja 1 to more people. You know what I mean? Like if you're a bigger dude, I feel like the Ja 1's gonna be good because the support is so good. But also if you're a guard, you should be fine in the Ja 1, right? But the Tatum 1, I would just recommend it more for like guards, you know what I mean? Just because support isn't the best for bigger dudes. So anyways, that about concludes this versus video. Again, if you guys do want to cop either of these shoes, I try to leave the fit link in the description box, but that's it. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.